The first thing people usually notice about me is the boots. They're heavy, scuffed, and permanently stained with the kind of dirt that doesn't wash out. I've had the same pair for 3 years. Good leather, thick soles. They've stood on concrete floors, muddy construction sites, gravel lots, and more ladders than I can count. At family gatherings, they tend to stand out. My brother Daniel prefers polished shoes, the kind that shine under restaurant lights and make soft sounds on office floors. His world is conference rooms, presentations, and titles printed neatly under his name, Vice President now. He made sure everyone knew that before the barbecue even started. The gathering was at my parents' place. Backyard full of folding chairs, the smell of grilled burgers drifting across the fence, neighbors' dogs barking in the distance. Typical family afternoon. Daniel was already holding court near the cooler when I arrived, explaining something about a new client deal to a group of relatives who nodded like they understood. I grabbed a bottle of water and helped my dad set up another table. No one asked much about my work. They rarely do. Most people hear construction and assume the rest, which is fine with me. Work is work, titles never meant much. At some point, Daniel wandered over while I was adjusting the grill. His eyes dropped to my boots. He laughed. Not a loud laugh, just the kind that carries enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Still wearing those?" he said. I glanced down at them. "Yeah." He shook his head like he'd discovered something amusing. "Man, go dig a ditch or something," he said. "I'm a VP now." A couple cousins chuckled. It wasn't cruel exactly, just the casual arrogance of someone who's used to being admired. I took a sip of my water. There was a time when comments like that bothered me. Years ago, I might have tried explaining how the construction business actually worked, how managing crews' budgets, materials, and deadlines wasn't exactly simple labor. But explanations rarely change people's assumptions, so I didn't say anything. Instead, I flipped the burgers and asked my dad if he wanted the grill hotter. The afternoon drifted on. Daniel continued talking about office politics and quarterly numbers. A few relatives hovered around him, asking questions. My mom smiled proudly every time someone mentioned his promotion. Meanwhile, I carried chairs, refilled drinks, and helped keep the food moving. It's easier to stay busy. At one point my phone buzzed in my pocket. I stepped away from the grill and checked the screen. An email notification. The subject line was short. Closing confirmation. For a second I just stared at it. Then I opened the message. The paperwork had finalized that morning, a property deal that had taken months to negotiate. Lawyers, inspections, financing approvals. All finished. I scrolled down to the address listed in the documents. I knew that address. Daniel's office building. I had been there twice during the purchase process, meeting the previous owner and reviewing maintenance reports. A solid commercial property, good tenants, stable leases. A smart investment. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and walked back toward the grill. Daniel was still talking. Corporate strategy is really about leadership, he was saying. Once you reach VP level, the responsibilities change. Someone asked what building his office was in downtown. He said the name like it was part of his identity. Then his eyes drifted back to my boots. Meanwhile, he added with a grin, some people are still out there digging holes. More laughter. This time I didn't ignore it. I took another sip of water and looked at him. Actually, I said calmly, I just bought the building you work in. The sentence landed softly in the middle of the conversation. For a moment, no one reacted. Daniel blinked. Yeah, right, he said. I pulled out my phone and opened the closing document. Then I turned the screen toward him. The deed confirmation sat clearly at the top of the page. Address, ownership, date. Daniel leaned closer. His smile faded a little as he read. One of my cousins stopped laughing. Someone behind me said, "Wait, seriously." I shrugged. Closed this morning. No one spoke for a few seconds. Daniel straightened up slowly, processing the information. You own the building? He asked. Looks that way. I didn't add anything else. Didn't explain the years of saving, the smaller properties I'd bought before this one, the nights spent reviewing spreadsheets instead of watching TV. Those details didn't matter right now. The silence around the grill felt different than before. Not dramatic, just quieter. My dad cleared his throat. "Burgers might burn," he said. I turned back to the grill and flipped them. The conversation eventually picked up again, though it moved in different directions. Less bragging, more small talk. Daniel stayed unusually quiet for the rest of the afternoon. When people started packing up chairs later, I carried the cooler back to the garage. The boots were still on my feet. Still dirty. Still comfortable. Nothing about them had changed, but for some reason, nobody joked about them anymore.